Soundstripe.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jerry Burkett, and welcome to the Project School Leadership Podcast. Thank you for being here. This is the week of May 21st. Today is a Tuesday, the week of May 20th, so thank you for being here today. So, as part of what I do in this podcast, and we're trying to finally figure out the format that I've been working on here, is that this thing that I'm calling podcast pedagogy. So while many of you who just happen to be in my summer seminar 6433 class at Texas Women's University, while my content is driven for everyone who's in that course, I also have other listeners and other subscribers from other classes and other people that have been listening. So I'm really trying to see if podcasting, at least the podcasting style, can be used as a way for students to acquire new information and new knowledge. Why not do a podcast? In the past, we would probably just cut a video and post it, and it would be just limited with very little discussion and information. But now you have an opportunity to really connect with what I'm saying and the information. It's cross-curricular because I combine all of my classes and everybody, and you just kind of get to learn different places. And look, if you're not a podcast, and that's a great irony, is I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. Content that's not applicable to you or not interesting to you, you just hit that fast forward button. You're not going to hurt my feelings, and I'm not going to know about it. But what I'm really looking to measure here is your understanding of the content, what you do with it. Do you share it with others? Do you apply it in your work life and your leadership growth? So for today's, for those of you in the 6433 class, it serves as part, it's an update, but then also we get into the lectures. And so as you start to listen and watch, you'll kind of see what the format looks like. So for now, we want to focus on a couple of things. There's number one, hopefully you've had a chance to introduce yourself and talk with others that are in this particular class. And if you haven't, you want to start getting together on those research topics, really want you to start getting into what it looks like to collaborate, do a literature review, and just sort of focus on conference proposals, and what it looks like to do that. So that's what we're pressing forward now. So what I want you to do is begin working with others, looking for ways to do that, and see if you've got some similar research interests. One of the things that let's say hello to each other, that's due here in a couple of days. Hopefully you've had a chance to do that and meet up with others who are in this particular course who have similar interests. We want to start dividing up our groups now. So for today's podcast, we're going to focus on transformational leadership. We'll be talking a little bit about that. We'll also talk about standardized testing. I also have some education headlines that I want to go over with you, and then we'll wrap it up with a wellness activity. So if you haven't had a chance, we're kind of working through Module 1 and into Module 2 in the 6433 class. And for everybody else, I hope you enjoy what we're working on today. So we'll see you in a bit. So I want to talk a little bit now about transformational leadership. Now, when you think of leaders, generally the great ones that come to mind are likely transformational leaders. These are the individuals that they're visionary. They've got a clear path that they want to take, a compelling vision. It's inspiring. They motivate their followers. And their vision is so inspiring and just amazing that followers are just compelled to go forth and help with that vision because they're so great at communicating that vision because they just in their mind they see it so clearly. Transformational leaders are also very caring. They care about the individual, not just the vision, but the people that are part of whatever it is that they're trying to do in the organization or whatever the vision is. The transformational leader understands that the individual people and their needs, the followers, are going to be part of that. So they have a genuine concern for individuals. They also tend to be brilliant. They're very, very smart people, intellectually smart, maybe well educated, maybe even educated with the streets. But it doesn't, wherever that is, it's part of that intellectual capacity is their creativity, their ability to change a narrative and the way things are thought about or approached, asking those critical questions, or maybe even making statements that just make you think a little bit differently. Because again, these folks are very good, amazing communicators, and because of that, they're inspirational. There are people that you can look up to, you can look to for, for making change happen, or moving an organization forward. And because of that, as you can see how these things are connected, they have influence. So there are lots of people that fall into this category. And if you were to Google transformational leader, you'll see a list of people that are considered transformational. And that's why they're called that. And you think about it, transformational, these are individuals who are poised to transform an organization to move forward. And this one, while leadership obviously is a learned trait, otherwise we wouldn't have entire degrees on it and amazing books. People can learn to be leaders. You can learn to be a leader. But transformational leaders, it's almost like the upper echelon of leadership. And these individuals have a talent for it because of all of these qualities, to be visionary and to care about individuals and have that inspirational, communicative capacity about them. So when we talk about transformational leadership, and I'm sure you have someone in mind that you're already thinking about, we juxtapose it with another term called transactional leadership, which I hesitate to call it the opposite of transformational leadership because it's not exactly an opposite, but transactional leadership sort of emphasizes the need to keep things the way that they are. They don't focus as much on the relationship that transformational leaders do. These are folks that they have a set of established goals, and we're just going to meet those goals because they probably meet the needs of that individual leader. They don't meet the needs of the many. They meet the needs of the few or the individual. It's very a quid pro quo kind of relationship. You give for me, I give back for you. And a lot of, before we really started to study leadership as a trait, many of our governments and our corporations are sort of operated on a transactional model. You give, I give, you show up and give time, I give you money, or you show up and vote, and then I take care of you. You can kind of see how there are some governments that were sort of set up on a transactional model. And there are a lot of leaders in the world today that still believe in a transactional model. But true great leadership is rooted in a transformational sort of style of leadership that, if anything, we may not be able to fully attain it for some of us because, again, some of the great leaders of the world that we know in our history books that we've even built statues to and monuments and have museums for. These individuals are truly transformational. So I encourage you to Google that term, just to get a sense for who are we talking about. And then read about that person. Read about that individual and the things that they did in their lives that would serve them as a transformational leader. Now I want to take a moment and talk about standardized testing. And if you've listened to this podcast before, or if you've watched any of my previous videos, and I'm no stranger to this conversation about standardized testing. Having spent 25 years in education, I've seen standardized testing throughout my career in one form or another. Quick story. As my time as a campus principal, I had to give that dreaded STAR test that the state of Texas forces us to give to students. And the one thing that changed over the course of time compared to when I was a child and when I became a school leader that had to give out the standardized test known as STAR, while there's been several iterations over it over the years, it's still a standardized test. But the one thing that was different was the high stakes element that was added to it. That lawmakers decided it would be important to influence the schools by giving them a rating in order for them to force this test upon children who are the ones who have to take the test, as a way of keeping and holding teachers accountable. I was always against that. My job as a principal was to hold teachers accountable anyway. So it's sort of a spit in the face of me and the job that I'm trained to do to assume that I can't hold my own teachers accountable. However, I digress. Not every principal was like me in the state of Texas and still continues to be like that today. There are a lot of schools that aren't doing very, very well, but there are many, many more who are doing amazing work. But being a principal and having to give a standardized test, I had literally watched children urinate themselves from the mental fear of not doing well on a test because of the pressure that was applied to them, whether it be themselves or through a teacher or through the fear that I won't advance to the next grade because I won't pass this one math test on this one singular day at this one singular time. Because for some reason that level of standardized testing has to dictate a person's life for the rest of their trajectory on a singular day at a singular time. It's not a holistic grade, and it's kind of stupid. So my take on standardized testing, and this applies whether you're in K-12 or even in higher ed, because in higher ed we also have our forms of standardized testing, whether it be SAT or ACT or GRE or any of the other numerous entrance exams that we give to students because we have to have a benchmark requirement for their entrance into a college or to a program or to a certification. I get it. We have to have some sort of assessment. But what we don't have to have is the high stakes element that attaches to the test. That somehow a person's life is going to be wrecked or ruined or the trajectory won't be the same if they don't do well on the test. Look, again, I'm a professor, I'm a teacher. I understand the point of assessment. You can't actually have proper measurement of your curriculum and instruction without some form of assessment. So I'm certainly not against assessment. And I never have been against assessment. What I've been against is the high stakes element of assessments. And let me give you another example. When you go to your doctor is going to give you an exam. They're going to make an assessment. They're going to make you lie on a table and they're going to poke around on your stomach and they're going to take the little tiny hammer and they're going to hit you in your knee to make sure that your joints reflex the way that they're supposed to. All of those are assessments. For some reason, when we go to a doctor, we find them necessary. And we don't question those assessments. Those assessments don't come with high stakes unless that doctor finds something wrong or you don't react to the assessment the way that he expected or she expected when the exam was given. Further, the doctor will also often ask you to give a blood sample, to do a blood donation into some vials, and maybe even a urine sample. And then a variety of assessments and tests are given to your blood sample and to your urine sample to see what's going on in your body, because obviously a doctor can't tell what's wrong with you by looking at you. Sometimes you have to do something a little more. That's why we also give x-rays, or CT scans, or even MRIs. We have the tools to do those things to see what's going on inside your body. Those are also forms of assessment. There are ways to do something that I think we've forgotten in education. It's called diagnostic. Those are diagnostic assessments. And what it means to give a diagnostic assessment is in order to diagnose whether there's something right or something wrong with you in your body. That's why the doctor gives the test that he does. That's why doctors give the assessments that they give in order for you to know if you're healthy or you're not. Now, if those assessments come back and a diagnosis is made that you're doing great, cool. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep your diet, keep your exercise, keep staying healthy. However, if those diagnostic assessments come back and there's something amiss, your doctor, the expert in the room, is going to say what you should do in order to correct the issue. It's going to give you some advice. It's going to tell you how to fix the problem. It's going to give you some options. That's why we allow for those assessments to happen, because our health is very important to all of us. Now, in education, why does it have to be any different? Assessments that are given on a day-to-day basis, that quiz on the states and capitals, that's a diagnostic assessment for the teacher to determine whether or not you learned your states and capitals or your multiplication tables and so on. We've gotten away from that in education. The assessments that we give are now high-stakes, informative tests that tell us whether or not we're doing good or doing bad in the eyes of the state or the education agency or the school board, or in some cases even the local realtor. It's not a diagnostic exam, or at least it's not used in that way. Sure, educators then take the test, they break it down, what did we do right, what did we do wrong, but it's not a diagnosis of the child who took the test, it's a diagnosis of the school, and how the school may or may not have done on one singular day, at one singular time, on a curriculum that they have no control over. Teachers teach what's in front of them. And the students come to them with what they have, and the teachers make the best of what they have. But that one singular test doesn't measure what that teacher necessarily did all year. Yes, I know it's based on the TEKS, and the test is supposed to be aligned with the curriculum, but when the state makes that test, when they contract out that test to be made by another company that's not even located here to give that test, it's not a diagnosis of what's going on with that child, that classroom, that teacher, that school at that moment. There's a lot of things missing with that. And it's not a proper assessment, in my opinion. It never has been. The problem is we don't have enough teachers empowered to say anything about it. We don't have enough school leaders empowered to say anything about it. Parents are usually not as informed as they would like to be on the issue, and frankly, superintendents are kind of busy. In previous rants about standardized testing, and you're welcome to go back and listen or watch any of those, I've indicted all those individuals. I don't need children urinating themselves before a test anymore, and there's a lot more we should do. But as we produce a future generation of leaders, what I would hope is that we have some voices out there to say that these tests aren't right, we're not using them correctly, and they probably should go away. Or let's do something different. Because again, I'm not against assessment, never have been. We need assessment. Just gave you examples why. But we don't need high-stakes accountability tied to one day, one test, one moment in time. It's not appropriate. Never has been appropriate. If we're going to continue with this kind of standardized testing, school leaders, you need to know, and you need to be working towards a way that we can use proper assessment to make sure that we're making the best decisions about a person's education that we possibly can. Just like your doctor does. Giving assessments to make the best decision that they can make about your health that they possibly can. Why is education any different? It shouldn't be. Let's take a look at some education headlines. As always, I think it's important for you to have a grasp on what's going on in education. So let's take a look at a few of these. The U.S. Supreme Court won't hear a Maryland school district's gender identity case. In this case, there was a school district in Maryland that had a policy saying that they would not out students and tell parents in the school who was transgender or not. A conservative group challenged the law, but it's going to be upheld that you can't out a student for being transgender, according to that policy. Last week, 6 students from Penn University were among 19 pro-Palestinian protesters arrested during an attempt to occupy a building. So while I've talked a little bit about the free speech on college campuses in past podcasts, one thing that you can't do is you can't occupy the space. The space doesn't belong to you. So, probably getting arrested over this, while it's your right to protest, you can't be in the building. So there's that issue. Here's a headline from Saginaw, Michigan. It says, even with school choice, some black families find options lacking decades after Brown versus Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education was 1954. The fact that we still have some predominantly white schools that who are not allowing black students to attend for some reason, despite the segregation being abolished, is kind of crazy. I'm not sure what's going on with this, but that's a crazy headline that some black families are finding it hard to even get into some of these schools wherever they live. That's wrong. That needs to be fixed fast. A school district in Pennsylvania cut a song from a student concert and it's pretty much divided the community. Some school district decided to remove a song from a student choir concert that spurred a review by a civil rights group. They cut the Lift Every Voice and Sing from the concert, and a lot of students and a lot of people weren't too very happy about that. So here it is in 2024, and we're still doing stuff like this. I just think it's crazy. The school board president, Troy Wright, called the decision a lose-lose situation and said parents were threatening to pull their children if they sang the song, and they were threatening to pull their children if they didn't sing the song. So that's just a little wacky and kind of dumb. In Mississippi, a transgender girl is facing discrimination from a dress code in a school issue. The ACLU has gotten involved. Apparently, a transgender girl who wanted to wear a dress to a regional band concert was discriminated against when her school insisted she follow a dress code based on her sex that she was assigned at birth. So ACLU is involved in this. I bring up these headlines because if you're going to go into school leadership, these are the hot topics that are coming up. And these dress code violations or Title IX violations. We've got some school issues that are starting to really kind of creep into some legal protections under the federal law. So it's very important to kind of follow how these things are going to play out. Somewhere in New York, Sophia, the AI robot, gave the commencement speech at a New York college. Some of the graduates were not pleased about it. Commencement speeches are typically given by celebrities or professors or sometimes government officials. But in this case, they decided to have Sophia, the AI robot, do the commencement speech. Apparently, the robot's been on Jimmy Fallon and other things. I think you probably need a human being to do some of these commencement speeches. We don't need to be farming out all these things to AI. And one final headline for today, there's a dropping child population happening in Michigan that's going to start impacting school funding. Fewer babies are being born there. Local school officials have had to close about 485 schools because of declining enrollment. This is just not a Michigan problem. This is happening all over the country. And because so much of school funding is tied to student enrollment, this is going to be a huge problem, in the future. That's going to start impacting communities and so forth. Another place, Richardson ISD here locally in North Texas, had a very similar issue. Declining enrollment, had to force to close some schools. That impacts the community, and that's really tough decisions that are being had to made by school officials. So tough situation there in Michigan. So that's our education headlines. As always, what I like to do when we wrap up our show and at the end of the day, one thing that's very important to me is your brain health, your mental health, and I know that particularly working in education, mental health is becoming a more important topic. It's actually a topic that I'm looking at a little bit more, doing some research on, because I don't think that we're doing enough in education to really serve our teachers, our professors, our students, that those of us who are working very closely with some high need students, high pressure situations, our schools have got to do more to educate and understand the importance of mental health first aid, mental health challenges. So what I want you to do is, for our wellness check today, is I want you to give yourself permission to take a break. Oftentimes, particularly in America, it's just not our culture to take breaks. We feel busy all the time. We feel like that if we're not working on something, that we're not accomplishing anything, and that someone might be disappointed, we might miss out on something, or someone who might need something from us won't get it. And so that anxiety and that fear kind of creeps up in us, and we never take breaks. We're the worst country in the world for taking vacations, taking time off for ourselves. And I think it's been ingrained in our work culture and our attitudes that vacations aren't good, it's for the weak, rest is for the weak. Well, I'm telling you that is all wrong. That is BS. It is incorrect. You have got to take breaks and you've got to take some time for yourself. So even in the throes of working in graduate courses or finishing up a school year if you're in K-12 or whatever you're doing in your work life, I want you to take some time for yourself. It's okay. Give yourself permission to rest. Give yourself permission to regroup and unplug and relax a little bit, because that's going to be great for your mental health. It's going to be great for your brain to reset, because sometimes you just need that recharge, that reset, especially if you've been working on a project for a very long time and you don't have it. Like you keep thinking about it and you don't know where you're at. Just take a break. Step aside. Walk away for a little bit. Give yourself 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever you need to recharge, regroup, reset, and give yourself that mental break that you need. So I want to give you permission to do that. So even if you're in my 64-33 class right now, I want to give you permission to do that. Take a break. Take a rest. It's okay to do that. And so I'm giving you that charge. You got permission. Go out there and some point this week, make sure that you take some time for yourself and do something you enjoy. Unplug from social media. Go for a walk. Play a video game. Do something that will relax you and rest your mind so that you can feel refreshed to get back to the work that we each do every day. So with that, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we will see you soon. Bye.